PlayStation 1 games run pretty well on the Miyoo Mini and the Miyoo Mini Plus. Most games will run full speed, and they look great and control pretty well since most PlayStation 1 games don't require an analog stick. The controller didn't even have analog sticks until later. That said, if you want your games to look sharper, especially the 3D ones, using the standalone PCSX ReARMed app will let you run most games with enhanced resolution at pretty close to 60 frames per second. If you try using the enhanced resolution on the RetroArch core, you will see and hear some games slowing down. It's not ideal, and using the standalone app will produce much better results. Now, most 2D games, usually JRPGs like Lunar Silver Star Story shown here, don't really benefit from enhanced resolution. You'll usually see a noticeable difference in 3D games like Spyro Year of the Dragon as shown here. Spyro can indeed run in a playable state when enhanced resolution turned on the RetroArch core. If you want to turn on enhanced resolution, press Menu and select to bring up the RetroArch menu. Go to Core Options, and then GPU Plugin, and then enable Enhanced Resolution Slow, which will increase the resolution, and then Enhanced Resolution Speed Hack, which will let the game run faster at those enhanced resolutions. Sometimes the speed hack will make games run worse, so this is one of those things you'll have to fine-tune on a per-game basis. Now, if you want to turn on the FPS Counter, we're going to go back, go into Video, and then enable Display Internal FPS. As a side note, if some games are giving you trouble on this emulator, one setting you can tweak is in Speed Hacks. So I'm going to go back and go into Speed Hacks Advanced. And we can enable Disable SMC checks. Only a few games should require this. If you overclock the Miyoo, the game should run a lot smoother using enhanced resolution for the RetroArch core. To overclock it, we'll need to add one text file named cpuclock.txt to the config folder. The easiest way to do this is to connect your microSD card to a computer using a USB adapter, but you can do it by using a phone as well. To keep this guide simple, I'll be using a PC, but if you don't have access to one, let me know in the comments below and I'll walk you through another method. The config folder is located in Saves, in Current Profile, in Config, and then in PCSX ReArmed. Right-click in the directory and create a new text document. We're going to name it cpuclock.txt. Open it up and then type in 1600 if you have the original Miyoo Mini, or 1800 if you have the Miyoo Mini Plus. I have the Miyoo Mini Plus, so I'll be typing in 1800 here. You can go higher, but in my experience, it caused the apps to crash. We're going to save by hitting Ctrl S, and then we're going to exit. Now, whenever we run games under the PCSX ReArmed core for RetroArch, it will be overclocked. The performance of the games will be much smoother. If you take a look at Spyro the Year of the Dragon, before we had slowdowns running enhanced resolution. But now, with the overclocking, the same segments where we had audio slowdowns don't slow down anymore. The major difference, however, is that the standalone app will run games at a much higher frame rate while giving you a little bit more stability as well. If we take a look at Tomb Raider 3, we'll see that the game struggles to maintain a steady frame rate of 30 FPS. If you don't overclock it, it will run very terribly. Now, if we take a look at the standalone app, we're getting a much higher frame rate. The performance of the standalone app shines in 3D intensive games. To get a better idea of how much better the resolution is, let's compare some macro shots of the two emulators. This is a close-up image of Metal Gear Solid 1 with the default resolution. Now let's compare that with a close-up image of Metal Gear Solid 1 with enhanced resolution. As you can see, the enhanced resolution's image is definitely sharper. You can visibly tell the resolution is much higher and the image looks less pixelated. The standalone app runs games with enhanced resolution much more reliably. As a side note, the standalone app didn't load Metal Gear Solid 1 using the M3U file for some reason. I had to load the individual CHD files. To do this, press the menu button to access the menu. We're going to go to load CD image and then press start. If you use the tiny Best Set Go ROM set, our individual CD images will be in the hidden folder. And in multi-disc, scroll all the way down to the game that you want to start. So I wanted to play Metal Gear Solid 1. We're going to pick disc 1 and then press start to load the game. After a few seconds, the game should load. While the difference for 3D isn't that drastic, the games do definitely look sharper and run at a higher frame rate. If you want to get the benefits of the standalone app, we'll have to use Onion OS, install the PCSX ReARMed Standalone app, and then add one line to the launch.sh file to overclock the handheld for some games that need a little bit of extra power to handle the higher resolution. Onion OS isn't completely necessary for this step to run a standalone app, but I do find using Onion OS to be the easiest and most convenient. I'm just going to gloss over how to install Onion OS because I go over it in almost every single guide video. I'm just going to link my written guide and you can refer to that. It really is simple though. All you have to do is format your microSD card to FAT32, download, extract, and then copy over the Onion OS files into the root of the microSD card. Plug that back into your Miyoo Mini, turn it on, and let it finish. It's that simple. There's some parts where you might have to update the firmware or you might want to back up your microSD card before formatting. That should be covered in the written guide. Now, in order to install the standalone PCSX emulator, we'll go start the package manager in the apps folder. Once it's loaded, press R1 to go into the apps tab and scroll all the way down to the expert shortcut. Make sure this is enabled because this is how we'll be accessing the app. Press R once again to go into the expert tab, press up once to go to the bottom of the list, and we'll continue on to Sony PlayStation PCSX Standalone. Make sure this is enabled and then press start twice to save the changes and exit. Now the standalone app is installed and we can access it from the expert shortcut. Now let's say you don't want to go into apps, expert, and then the PCX standalone app because that is a lot of extra button presses to start a game. We can actually fix this quite easily. All we have to do is copy the standalone app folder in the RApp directory to the EMU folder. Let me show you how to do that. We're going to go to our microSD card. We're going to navigate to the RApp folder. This is where all your expert apps are. We're going to right click on PCSX ReArmed and copy the entire directory. We're going to navigate back one folder and then go into the EMU folder. Here we're going to paste it in, and as you can see, I've already done that. Now, when you start your Miyoo Mini and go into the games folder, you'll see the PCSX standalone app listed there amongst your regular emulators. I didn't do any thorough testing, but it seemed like I didn't need to change any of the config files and everything seemed to work fine. It is entirely possible that doing this will break something later on, so I'm just giving you guys a heads up. Now we're pretty much done here, but we will want to overclock the handheld. We'll be doing this by adding one line to the launch.sh file in the folder we just created. Before we make any changes to the file, I would recommend backing it up. You can do this by right-clicking on the file, copying it, and then pasting it back into the directory. We can rename it as original so we know what it is. Now click on the launch.sh file. Scroll all the way down here, and as you can see, above the CPU frequency.sh call, I have a line that says CPU clock 1800. If you have the original Miyoo Mini, you'll want to change this to say CPU clock 1600. Those are the recommended frequencies. You can go higher, but it may cause a lot of instabilities. We're going to hit Ctrl S to save, and then we're going to exit. And that's it. Overclocking is necessary for some games such as Metal Gear Solid 1. Running the games with enhanced resolution will cause some slowdowns in some areas without the overclock. You will be able to tell by the frame rate dropping as well as the audio becoming a little bit unstable. Overclocking will not cause extra heat to be generated or cause your battery to drain faster. This is a relatively safe process other than possibly causing apps to crash if you overclock too high. If you wanted to verify your overclock worked, you can run a game like Metal Gear Solid 1 and have the FPS counter turned on. You can turn on the FPS counter by pressing the menu button, go to Options and press Start, and toggle Show FPS to On. You can then press the menu button to exit back out. If you want to show FPS on all games, go down to Save Global Config and press Start, and then press Menu to exit back out. You'll have slowdowns without the overclock during this elevator cutscene in the very beginning, as well as the intro cutscene afterwards and when you are getting shot. However, with overclocking, you should have no slowdowns during these sections. You can also Telnet into your handheld and run the CPU clock app. To do this, we'll need to install Telnet onto your computer and enable Telnet on your handheld. This can only work on the Miyoo Mini Plus and not the OG Miyoo Mini, since only the Plus model has Wi-Fi. Search for Telnet in the Windows search bar. This will bring up a screen to turn Windows features on or off. Scroll down and check the box next to Telnet, and then confirm the changes to install. This process may be slightly different for other versions of Windows. Now we have Telnet installed. On the Miyoo Mini Plus, make sure that Wi-Fi is turned on and that you are connected to your home network. After this, exit out and then go into the Tweaks app. Go to Network, and from here enable SSH and Telnet. You also want to make sure that Disable Services in-game is turned off. Now scroll back to the top and write down your IP address. Mine was 192.168.0.101. Yours may differ. Going back to your PC, start the command prompt by typing in CMD in the Windows search bar and pressing Enter. You can also press the Windows and R key to bring up the run box and type in CMD there. In the prompt, type in Telnet, space, followed by the IP address of your Miyoo Mini Plus. Mine was 192.168.0.101. Press Enter. Once Telnet connects, you can access your Miyoo Mini using console commands. This is very insecure, so make sure to disable Telnet and then turn Disable Services in-game back on after you are finished checking the clock speed. Type in cd space dot temp underscore update /bin and press Enter. This is the directory where the CPU clock app is located. Type in CPU clock and press Enter to display the current clock speed. As we can see here, the default PCSX ReArMed Standalone app has the clock speed set to 1200. Now I'll launch the standalone app with the launch.sh file edited to overclock, and we're going to type in CPU clock again. As you can see, we have our clock speed of 1800 now. You don't have to do this step, this is just to double check if the overclock edit worked. You can mostly tell just by playing the game because it will run smoother in parts that has some issues. That's going to be it. Now you can play the PlayStation 1 games using the standalone app and get the benefits of having both a higher resolution and frame rate. This isn't something you need to do, and it won't make much of a difference for most 2D games, but the 3D games definitely do look and feel much sharper. The only downside is that the available RetroArch features and hotkeys no longer work. You'll have to press Menu to access the standalone menu, and then manually save and load states. Pressing the Start button will confirm menu options, and then pressing the Menu button will back out. The trade-off is sharper image quality and higher frame rate for less convenience. For me, I don't really care too much about the graphics, but for those who want to squeeze as much performance out of the device as possible, the standalone app works really well. For those who want higher performance with the convenience of RetroArch and OS features, you can try overclocking and turning enhanced resolution on for the RetroArch core. You'll get a lower frame rate and deal with some frame skipping, but it will definitely look better than the default resolution. Not all games will run well on the RetroArch core, however. This option is available to you if you want to mess around with it. Anyways, I hope this guide was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave one down below. As always, hope you guys are staying safe and sane out there, and catch you guys next time.